Welcome to the Alumni Speaker Series this evening. I'm Annie Puffett, the Director of Career Development, and this evening we are joined by Royce Hix. He is a 2013 alum from our Wausau Center. He was an accounting major, and he currently resides in Waukesha, Wisconsin. So welcome, Royce, as we continue our Alumni Speaker Series this evening. I know there's several things that you want to talk about, but first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. And sure, I can tell you, other than being a UIU alumni, really, I guess just a brief overview of my career instead of a big biography that would, be paragraphs and everybody would forget what my name even was by the end of it. I know I have that problem. I'll just say that really my trajectory towards accounting started probably when I was helping my parents' small business. I was, as a teenager, I didn't go get a paper route or bus dishes or things like that. I helped do data entry and filing, for them, helping out my mom and learning that way. And then after doing that and learning business a little bit, I actually decided to go to school for IT. So yeah, I guess I forwent the accounting side. Ultimately made my way back though after spending a few years in IT, fixing computers, that sort of thing. Outside of the family business, got my start as a temp to hire accountant for a privately held firm in Wausau, a for-profit company, not an accounting firm. And really have just tried to work my way up and keep striving for goals to where I'm kind of the controller CFO level for a variety of different companies. Still in the for-profit world, but I do also volunteer. In addition to being a board member at one of those organizations, I actually volunteer with a nonprofit, the Institute of Management Accountants, where I've been our Milwaukee chapter, the chapter president. We do sort of a rotational leadership program. I'm a volunteer at the regional delegate level for their Mid-America Council, which covers Wisconsin, Illinois, and parts of Iowa. I'm part of their Campus Influencers program, so I've been able to talk with students at a variety of colleges about accounting and managerial accounting and career development, scholarships, you name it. Also been a volunteer treasurer now of a charter academy based in near Waukesha, just a little west of here. A landlord, a for-profit online tutor that I do on the side, and I'm an adjunct professor teaching managerial accounting at a college here in Milwaukee. So taken on a lot since my start as a humble filing receipts 12-year-old.
Wonderful. A lot of different things that can provide a lot of different opportunities. So that's great. What are some of the experiences? I know you've kind of listed several things, and I know you're going to talk about some of those experiences a little bit later on too. But what are some of the experiences you've had and some of the lessons you've learned that have helped influence your accounting career to date?
Sure. And that's a great question, because certainly accounting is not just the accounting skills themselves, but different things that I've learned along the way, for better or worse. And I tried to pick out a few highlights that I wanted to touch on, given I could probably ramble for 2 or 3 hours if you let me. So in the interest of time, I will say one of the first, I think, biggest things that I experienced was at that temp to hire place. I was at a company called Sue's Ginseng. And the Sue family actually originally was out of Taiwan and immigrated to the States, start a company in Wausau, of all areas, actually, believe it or not, is sort of the one of the best places in the world to grow ginseng. So worked out great. But I remember talking to my staffing firm who had placed me there and saying, wow, the language barrier is really challenging for me. I don't know if I'm going to thrive here. I don't know if I'm going to make it here or be successful. I mean, it was challenging enough, my first real accounting job outside of like the family business or the work I did in IT. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in a town of 8,000, so I never really had the opportunity, challenge, I'll put a slash in there. It's a challenge, but also a growth opportunity that I'd never really had to work closely with anybody whose English, was not their first language. So I stuck it out, and I'm very glad I did. So if you ever have a challenge like that, I highly encourage you to stick it out, learn as much as you can from it. I mean, just awesome people to work with, awesome experiences taken away, great personal growth, outside of the accounting area. So I'm grateful for them letting me stay there for a few years and learn as much as I did. Another experience on the negative side then is to maybe be careful when you're looking for new places. Certainly what shaped my career has been a few job hops, which, some people say it's good, it's bad. I could share an opinion on that later, but I did hop. I was kind of looking for, money. Of course, that was important to me as a young accountant. And now I've got my bachelor's. Now I'm a certified management accountant. Well, how do I get paid more, right? That was one of the big things that I chased more when I was younger, earlier in my career. But really put myself in a tougher spot that one of the places I landed at which was actually Great Wolf Lodge, for me at least, it was not a good fit. It wasn't really as fun as I thought it'd be. When you think big water park resort, you think, wow, guests are going to be having fun, kids are going to be yelling. Like, how could you not have a blast there? Like, people, we've got restaurants and bars on site. Like, it would be so much fun. But culture can be a lot different. And certainly that's something I learned too, is asking those questions, thinking about, okay, promotion paths and more money, and how do I just get my bigger title? And really, I should have been asking the harder questions about company culture and how will I fit here? Will I fit in? Will they like me? Will I like them? Will it be a good, long-lasting relationship? And I failed to ask those questions. So I can't really put that on them, but it was a good learning experience. It was my third or fourth year post-graduation. So maybe I didn't learn it soon enough, but that'd be advice to share. And also to share to be authentic. One of the challenges I faced there was, when you go to Great Wolf Lodge, if you're not familiar, they give you a pair of wolf ears that you can wear, and kids love it. Some of the adults, begrudgingly wear it. I totally bought into it. I thought that was hilarious. It was awesome. I'm going to wear these wolf ears because I'm in accounting, and like, who expects like the stuffy accounting department to want to get involved? But it was part of the whole brand messaging, right? Like, welcome to our lodge. You're our guests. You're one of us now. We're all family here. And there were a lot of supervisors and managers that just thought, yeah, that's corny. That's cheesy. I'm not interested. That's stupid. That's lame. To me, I think be yourself, be authentic, even if you do look lame, to some people. To the guests and to the people that did participate, you looked like somebody who cared and somebody who was passionate. And I'll reflect on this briefly, but we had a corporate sort of leadership meeting where all the supervisors and above were brought in. We had this sort of brand realignment training sort of session. 50 people in there. Less than half were wearing the ears when they came in. And the very first thing that this sort of, sort of high impact speaker that was brought in said is, everybody put your ears on. That is what our brand stands for. That's the first thing that guests see when they get here is people at the front desk wearing the ears, embracing the brand. And so it was interesting the way that people bought into that, but there was that lack of authenticity that people did not. As soon as that meeting was over, that lesson seemed lost on some of the people. So I encourage you to just embrace it. Be weird, be unique, and be yourself. I think that's helped me be successful as the long-haired metalhead accounting guy that I am. I lean into it. I embrace it. And I think that's helped me in that way. After Great Wolf, though, I landed at a more traditional manufacturing place. Another experience I'll share is don't be afraid of other terms outside of your comfort zone. My bachelor's is in accounting. I'm a certified management accountant. They said, hey, can you do benefits administration? Run the payroll, do our annual insurance renewals, administer our 401k program. And me wanting opportunity said, yeah, of course I can do all that. I really didn't know what I was doing. I had a little bit of cross training with the person who was leaving, but realistically, I had to learn in sort of a trial by fire sense. And that might scare some people away, perhaps, who say, well, I'm not really interested in HR. I'm not interested in recruiting or benefits or all that sort of stuff. And I would encourage you, just still try it. Even if you do it for a year and you decide you can't take any more of it, you can always work with people to say, can we transition this? Can we do something? But a little discomfort can go a long way. I have those skills I can reflect on and say, I did it, I know about it, but just that I can also demonstrate I was able to learn it and execute on that. So, and one of the other things I'll point out too with Snyder Mold, which is the place I landed at, look for networking opportunities. Certainly I'll touch a little more in detail on that later, but I was quickly exposed to, they're a member of this organization called the American Mold Builders Association, or AMBA. And even me being new to the industry, it was such a great way to start getting to hear names and connecting on LinkedIn and just embrace whatever, even if it's new industry to you, there are these quick and great ways to get involved, learn the business, and meet people. And maybe a little tougher now, with COVID and organizations not doing things in person, but there's still plenty of virtual events. And again, LinkedIn, I'll talk about more later. It's just, there's some really great opportunities if you're willing to take advantage of them. And certainly, as I spoke to before, outside of sort of the corporate or for-profit work I've done, volunteering with the Institute of Management Accountants, again, I encourage everybody, embrace your personality. What makes you unique? I remember a teacher telling me, you should really cut your hair. I remember a mentor telling me, when are you going to cut your hair? Like, how did this become such a big thing that because I like metal music and I have long hair, like people still sort of had that stigma around it. And to an extent, I empathize with that. I understand first impressions make a big deal, but I do think that it was important for me to be myself. And I encourage everyone to do the same. And there may be people that aren't into that. And I think that's fine, because that means you find a place that is into that. And it's a place that's a better fit for you anyway than you just, if I cut my hair and I found a place that was, just very much not into that sort of thing, or into me as a person, as this goofy, nerdy accountant guy, I wouldn't make it there very long, even if I tried to fit into what they wanted. So it might take you longer to find that right place. But yeah, be authentic, volunteer, just meet people and get the chance to shine and break away from that, maybe quote unquote negative first impression. And as part of that too, not just being yourself, but really knowing yourself and knowing your worth. As I have job hopped a little, I've worked with a number of different recruiters. I've been told that sort of cardinal rule, it seems, that, don't really expect more than 10% when you move from one job or one position to the next. And for some people, perhaps that's true. And some people may just completely abide by that. But I've broken that twice in my career. Once just by going to my boss and saying, here's what the market looks like. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm asking for. We had a conversation and it was over 20%. And another point earlier in my career where after getting my bachelor's at UIU, it speaks to the earning power of UIU helping me really have a successful career, but I jumped more than 25% from being a bachelor's holder and a certified management accountant. And it's something a recruiter probably would have said, you're hoping for too much. But again, just know your worth in the market and believe in yourself and be yourself. And those are the experiences I've taken away outside of, 10 years now of accounting knowledge just baked into my brain now.
Wonderful. We do have a couple of questions, so I'm going to ask them now. And I guess if you're planning to cover this a little bit later in the in your talk, then definitely we can talk about that a little bit later. But the first one here is, as an upcoming accounting major, I wonder what was the hardest thing about adjusting from the classroom to the workforce?
That is a good question. Not one I had to cover. I think it's hard for me to answer that genuinely, because I worked the entire time I was in school, both through my tech college program and through UIU, which was one of the big benefits, was I could go to night school at UIU and work full time in accounting. So I kind of got to see both side by side. I will say probably the biggest difference between the two is it's hard to encapsulate all the things that go into day-to-day business out of a book or even the best professor in the world. And I say this being an adjunct professor and striving to be great, but I know in 16 weeks at 3 hours a week, I just cannot share all the nuances of what it's like to not just learn how the accounting works, but what system do they use and how does that apply to the debits and credits you're learning about, and which part do you actually do? Are you involved in payables? Are you working with purchase orders with just the invoices? Are you in budgeting? Are you in fixed assets? And which areas are you getting exposed to? And who's training you? Who's mentoring you? Are they giving you what they need? The book might have told you this is how you do it, but they might tell you to do it a different way. And how do you adjust to places that have, policies that maybe don't totally align with like generally accepted accounting principles? Those are just all the things that are things you learn quickly once you're there, but certainly difficult to get out of the classroom setting.
Right. And we do have another question. And that one is, as an accounting major, I was wondering if you took the CPA exam And if so, would you recommend taking it? And what are the benefits of becoming a CPA?
That's a great question, and one I have very strong opinions on. I did not take my CPA exam intentionally. I took my CMA exam because I knew I was not going into public accounting. I knew that tax was not interesting to me, auditing was not interested to me, and dealing with regulatory issues just didn't really fire me up. I didn't feel passionate about that. So right there, you've knocked out 3 of the 4 parts of the CPA exam that basically I'm not a good fit for that program. I'm not a good fit for that career path. What I would say is if you intend on going into public accounting, if you are really passionate about some of those things, obviously CPA is kind of a requirement to do it. So absolutely go get it. But I will say if you're interested in working more for like for-profit companies, privately held companies, to my mind, they don't really need that expertise on a day-to-day basis, right? It's not every day that a company has a complex tax question come up that they need an in-house expert to rely on, right? Like I've worked in for-profit companies. We partner with a CPA firm. We can get that expertise on an as-needed sort of contractual basis. But on a day-to-day basis, what they need typically inside of an organization, to my mind, and in my humble opinion, is really more of managerial accounting. You need people who understand the operational finance side and how what they do for decision making affects the bottom line, and being able to forecast and be able to look past just strictly debits and credits and a nice formatted GAAP friendly income statement, and really get into the nitty gritty of product cost or job costs or service costs, and really help drive the profitability from a day-to-day perspective. And those are things that I think the CMA focuses more on, and the CPA can certainly be beneficial. It's not going to hurt anybody. But if you're not going into public accounting, I would say, at least in my career trajectory, it probably took 4 or 5 years before I was really dealing heavily in anything that the CPA would have helped me with, like tax issues or being the lead on the annual audit for a company. And even there, not CPA required, but I would say really consider where you want your career to go. And it may not even be the CMA. I mean, if you really like internal audit, you could become a certified internal auditor. That would add more value. You can be a certified fraud examiner, or a forensic accounting is more your speed. So the CPA is the gold standard. It is. It's very much an excellent credential. It is one of the reasons I chose UIU, because they are accredited if I chose to go back to do that. But I knew early on that that was not my pathway. And I learned since then that I think the CPA outside of the public accounting sphere is not as valuable as people make it out to be. So I think you really should look closely at where you want your career to go and find a credential to match that, at least within the first 5 years. You can always choose later to go back and sit for the CPA exam.
Okay. And the other question that we had that you might not be able to answer since you did not take the CPA exam would be, what are some of the steps that you took, but I will change that to what are some of the steps that individuals need to take in preparing for the CPA exam? Is that something that you know, or, and if not, that is something that the students that ask that question can feel free to reach out to the career development office and we can assist you as well. But Royce, do you kind of know what some of those steps are to take the CPA exam?
Sure, I can speak to it because I actually did reach out to the National Association, but like the Wisconsin Institute of Certified Public Accountants, WICPA. I reached out, I think it's NASBA, I just can't think of what it stands for, to determine if my credit history would be eligible. And you can submit your transcripts and they'll tell you if you have, at least in Wisconsin, you need 120 credit hours to sit for the exam, but you do still need 150 credit hours. Even if you pass all 4 parts, you have the experience requirement met, you still need 150 academic credit hours to get accredited, because it is a state-based accreditation. So again, even if I'm accredited here in Wisconsin, there might be challenges. I mean, I'm 45 minutes from the Illinois border. If I move 45 minutes south, which I probably won't do, I like Wisconsin, but if I did, there might be some challenges with just making sure I get registered appropriately with Illinois. I don't know which department does it in Illinois, but there are challenges with that. And it's different per credential. The certified management accountant, for example, is not accredited through the state. So it's actually more of a global credential. And so each one might be a little bit different. But that's my understanding of the CPA exam requirements. And And part of why I don't want to do it is because I would need to go take probably master's level, graduate, expensive courses, right? It's not just like if I pay the $2,000 in exam fees and I sit and I study and it's good. It's probably more of a $10,000 to $15,000 affair for me to go get mine. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about credit load. If you are set on the CPA exam, do your best to get 150 out of your bachelor's degree program.
Yes, that is great advice, because I have worked with some students that do have to take some additional courses in order to meet that requirement for those types of things. Okay, so moving on to kind of the next topic that we have here. I know that Upper Iowa is a big, important part of your life. What brought you to Upper Iowa? Why did you choose Upper Iowa University for your bachelor's degree?
Sure, fantastic question. It happened almost by accident. Happy accident, I will say, because certainly I'm very glad that I attended UIU. But really, I was going to school at North Central Technical College in Wausau to get my associate's degree in accounting. And lo and behold, here's this Upper Iowa that's at the same campus. So I almost got to feel like a four-year student. I mean, I got it done in 3.5 thanks to Upper Iowa's programs, which I appreciate greatly. But I was able to go to the same campus. Even a few of the teachers that taught at NTC were then adjunct professors for some of the night classes at Upper Iowa. So I even had some repeat teachers, which was really cool. You know, getting to see my fellow students in the hall, even if they were former students who were maybe a semester behind or ahead. I really liked that part. It's like I didn't have to move away. I didn't, all my credits transferred 100%. It was a very seamless experience. And UIU, the team there, made it so easy to do. It was, I look at how students, the challenge is going to like a big, in Wisconsin, UW system, and having to move out, find dorms and worry about who they're rooming with, and will their credits transfer from AP courses? And I just kind of sat there like, this is almost too easy. They're letting me do this. But it worked out really well too. I mean, the class format allowed me to work full time, which was very, very helpful. I basically able to finish my bachelor's degree debt-free, which it's awesome. A lot of talk is thrown out about student loans. Some people call it crisis, and I look back on my time, like, oh, UIU was flexible, upfront with their costs. It was affordable. It worked out really well. It was helpful that UIU was accredited, as we talked about with the CPA and CMA exams, that there were no issues, that all gold stars across any accreditation I think I could think of. It's like, oh yeah, UIU's on the list. Perfect. So anything I want to do, this bachelor's degree will allow me to do. But I will say, reflecting on my time there, I do wish I spent more time really, I guess, caring, really getting involved more. I kind of was more so at NTC, being part of accounting club, being part of like the Business Professionals of America club. But at UIU, I think I just let that slip between working full time and then the bachelor's degree level classes full time. So if there's any advice I have there is that I really had a great time, a great experience with UIU. But if you're there, if you're a current student, please do get involved as much as you can. I mean, there's classes that I took and don't really remember much from, but there are a lot of people that weren't even in accounting that I'm still connected with to this day, that I'll still remember a conversation from, or like a story they told that opened my eyes to something new in a way that's just different from the class experience. So it's something I wish future me would have like smacked current or past me in the face and said, just, hey, listen more to the people. It's not just the teachers, it's all the people around you. It's the whole thing. So hopefully everybody now is better about that than I was then. But yeah, that's the only thing I miss and wish I would have did better with my time at UIU.
Okay. You talk about volunteer. You've talked a little bit about volunteerism in previously. I know that it's a large part of you personally and professionally. Can you go into a little more depth on your volunteer experience and why you think it's so important for others to give back, whether it's in your field or in your community, that type of thing? Why is volunteerism so important to you?
Sure. No, it's it's a volunteerism and leadership is what I'm here to really, really get into. Yeah, I will say that volunteerism has been outside of certainly getting my bachelor's degree from a good university, which, done, UIU, easy enough. It's really been the catalyst of my career growth for a variety of reasons. and I'll focus really on my time with the Institute of Management Accountants. It's really where I spent the bulk of my time. It's really got the collision of it's something I'm passionate about. I love managerial accounting. Well, it's the Institute of Management Accounting. It doesn't get any more relevant than that. It allows me to practice skills I wouldn't otherwise get a chance to necessarily in the job site. Anything from event planning to public speaking to marketing and sales, of getting people to come to events and getting students and faculty to get interested and involved. And it's something that's it's local. It does kind of give back. It's not just kind of like putting an envelope into like a giant, nonprofit somewhere that I could feel like I did something, but I'm boots on the ground trying to do things. It's very fulfilling in that sense. But yeah, certainly with my time at IMA, as I mentioned, I've had the opportunity to be a leader of our local chapter here in the greater Milwaukee area. And it's been great to meet members throughout the area. It's having the opportunity to create events. I mean, even we had anything from ethics events that are interactive to we've done events on blockchain, which were interesting, Bitcoin, that sort of stuff, cryptocurrency. We've had a brewery tour, which was surprisingly successful. A lot of accountants want to go have a beer and have a tour, but talked about the operation and finance side of it too, and getting to be part of the sort of board or the committee that plans those things and organizes those. It's like I get to take charge of what we get to try and do here in southeastern Wisconsin. So even for me, it's like, well, what do I want? What am I interested in? Let's use this chapter to try something out. So it's fulfilling that way too. Through IMA, though, as I mentioned, like public speaking, not just getting in front of, say, a crowd of 20 or 30 attendees, but I got my chance to moderate one of the webinars. And as I briefly mentioned, IMA is global. So when their global team puts on a webinar, they get a high impact speaker or a vendor of some kind that wants to talk about something. And it's literally hundreds of attendees worldwide. And there I am as a moderator, just talking in front of these people who connect on LinkedIn, people from all over the place. That's something I would never have the opportunity to do otherwise. Through their campus influencers program, I've been able to go to different colleges in the area. I used to be in person, done a bunch of virtual ones last year. And that's been really interesting too, to talk about IMA from what scholarships do they have? And it's almost like I'm coming there to try and give money to students. Like, here's this free stuff that IMA wants to give you: CMA exam membership, IMA membership, volunteer opportunities, networking opportunities, all for free. It's kind of exciting that way. But getting to connect with students who are fledgling accountants, or maybe they're a business management major, or just getting to be connected with people in the area. And certainly it helps on the resume, right? I mean, those are all experiences I can reflect on, or when I get asked an interview question, I can not just talk about something I did at work, but maybe something I did through IMA, or people I've met through IMA. So that's all tremendously helpful as part of volunteerism. And of course, I say IMA, but any organization that you can get involved with, be it related to your field, you name. I'll talk a little more about that later, I suppose. But again, it's giving back. I mean, I find that fulfilling and satisfying. I feel happy when I do it. It gives me a sense of pride in my work. I feel good about trying to help people get connected and have events and things they can go to. I very much like all that. Helping students get scholarship opportunities. I mean, there's no downside to that. It's fantastic. IMA helps students get opportunities they might not otherwise have. And in colleges throughout the area, all students from all walks of life. I mean, it's a great thing to just, hey, here's an opportunity. I'll be your point person if you're interested. And certainly, though, the other component that I'll kind of touch on and maybe segue into is kind of the networking piece. I heard a lot about networking all throughout my life. Well, it's who you know, that sort of thing. Well, I'm an introvert. I don't want to know anybody, right? That's my natural response is I don't make friends easily. I don't have a big friend circle. I'm not a social person. Like, I'm a nerdy video gaming music guy. Like, that's my happy place. But really networking, it's become more natural as volunteering has forced me to make it more natural to interact with people, to be a leader. Somebody's got to lead this chapter, and nobody's getting paid to do it. So I guess I got to step it up here. So it really kind of, again, a little discomfort goes a long way. But it's worked out for me firsthand. I mean, I can tell you just in the last probably 15 months, I guess, back to barely pre-COVID, but at that brewery tour, there was a CFO there hiring for a senior accountant position. Now, if I think of that, if I was looking for that was the next step for me, let's say, a sense of, it wasn't for me at the time, but if it were, if I were looking for senior accountant position, that'd be an awesome next place for me to land. I'm literally having a beer with the CFO, the hiring manager. Like, where else are you going to get that kind of opportunity if you're not involved in these sorts of activities? Like, that was, it's funny and it's awesome all at the same time. And I did send her, a referral or two. I don't know if it worked out, but still, to have that experience, networking right there. Somebody I had just met that evening. It was, something I can reflect on. Like, there is some power. There's something to that. When I was in an interview process last year for an assistant controller type position, I was thinking it might have been a fit. The CFO that was hiring for that position formerly reported to somebody who is an IMA member. And I looked on LinkedIn, and sure enough, this IMA member had written the CFO hiring manager one of those recommendations. And I messaged him, hey, what can you tell me about this guy? Like, yeah, he's big hotshot CFO, and I'm just this little assistant controller, but it's kind of an equalizer that way. Like, I get to talk to this guy's former boss who I'm connected to through IMA, through volunteering. And as it turns out, he put in a reference for me. I made it to the last phase of the interviews. I must have bombed because I didn't get the job. It worked out. I found a placement that I think was a better fit. But I think without that reference, I don't know if I would have even necessarily had the foot in the door. So I think that went a tremendously long way, and solely because of, again, through volunteering and meeting people. And I had never even met this person in person before. He just knew that I had sent out marketing blasts. I bugged him once a month about IMA. So he knew who I was and was willing to, I don't know what he wrote, but he was willing to kind of put his reputation on the line for me in that way. Certainly being an adjunct professor, 100% due to volunteering. Again, I'm in the classrooms. I'm trying to give scholarship opportunities and talk about why I think the CMA can be a great fit depending on your career path. And one of the professors who I've coordinated with on a number of things related to my volunteer work mentioned they're looking for an adjunct professor. I would not have known, first, that was even something that college was looking for. Second, I wouldn't have been welcome because I don't have a graduate degree, and typically to teach an undergrad course, you kind of an expectation, was my understanding. They were willing to waive it for me, though, because he could vouch for me, and they knew that it's a managerial accounting class, and I had my certified managerial accountant designation. So they found a way to still make it work, but there would have been no way if I was just, Joe Blow off the street. Hey, yeah, totally. I want to teach a class. Let me do that. But he had seen me present in front of students before, in front of small groups at our IMA events. He saw me interact, and he vouched for me in a way that, again, without volunteering, never would have built that connection. And one more that's even come up since I was invited to this was a fellow IMA connection tied me into this local charter academy who was looking to add a treasurer, as their treasurer has now become their principal, and they're opening a school this fall, and it's exciting. And I would have never thought, really, a charter school? I don't really know much about charter schools or education. Like, I just worked in business, right? But this connection has he kind of vouched for me, and it's been working out. I've been able to learn a tremendous amount, meet some really great people. So really, it's like you get out of it what you put into it, right? Like, I could just be an IMA member, but by being an active participating volunteer, I've got so much value out of it. I cannot recommend it enough. It doesn't have to be IMA, but anywhere. Just get involved somewhere.
I do have another question that I'm gonna ask. And so this is in regard to your LinkedIn profile. That your LinkedIn says you have real estate investor listed. How have you started that? How have you started that? And what advice would you give someone for starting that?
Sure. I use it, and it's probably a loose term, but I did last year buy my first multifamily unit that I'm also residing in. But yeah, it was, just sort of a renter or, a single, individual home. But I decided that through the joy of interest rates being as low as they are and having enough money available to try and make an investment, outside of the 401k or the IRA, that certainly I think COVID, in a sense, how it spiked the market so far and so quickly, was a good reminder to hedge my bets elsewhere too. And I guess in a sense, even looking at people who, I was somewhat fortunate in my job that, I didn't really crash and get put out on the streets or anything. A lot of people, suffered a lot, in the last year. And so to hedge against that too, like, yeah, it worked out for me this time. I did okay, but maybe next time I'm the one that, layoffs hit me and it doesn't work out. So, so that's what kind of drove me to it. And just trying to look at it from, again, managerial accounting is all about looking for the return on investment, return on assets, being data driven, numbers driven, and making choices from that logical and rational sort of core of what makes financial sense to do. And the numbers in this case kind of worked out. So it's humble starts, but I do hope to build on it. As it turns out, my dad actually just got his realtor license, I believe. So I'm pretty proud of him for that. And he might be showing me properties. It's up in the Northwoods, so it'd be far away from me, but it's kind of exciting to think about because they're interested in those types of things too. So it's almost kind of a in the family thing. But yeah, it's a place to start. I didn't have to buy like a 40-unit apartment building or anything to get started. All it takes is one property, and maybe in a year or two, I'll look at buying another if everything works out.
All right, thank you for that. You had mentioned when you talked about volunteerism, you mentioned that it's a natural segue into networking. So can you talk a bit about networking and how that can play a large role in someone's career?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, not just the anecdotes I gave, which they worked for me, but again, I was skeptical of networking, certainly before those opportunities started just kind of naturally coming. But even if you are, as I said, I'm an introvert naturally. Meeting people is tough. Making friends is tough. I'm not good at it. It's just not my skill set, really. I try and I work at it actively. But LinkedIn is an amazing tool for that because you don't have to have the chit chat that, well, how do I walk up to that person? I'm afraid to, what if I say something stupid? You can sit there and stare at your introductory message on LinkedIn for hours before you send it and, worry about every word if you really want. But you can be 100% confident when you go to add somebody and you leave a little note like, hey, it's Royce, I'm a fellow IMA member. I'd love to connect with you. You can have some confidence that, most people are pretty open to that. If you have some reason to be sending them a connection request, that it just helps build your network. And then you can start a conversation at any time. Again, if you're shy and you don't want to, maybe someday you have a second coffee and you're feeling wired and you're like, networking actually sounds great today. You'll have that pool of people that you're connected with that it might spark your interest. Somebody gets a new job somewhere, or you're looking for a new job and you're already connected with 6 people at a place that has a job that you would like. And you've got kind of a natural, hey, can you tell me about that job? Or are they taking internal referrals? Again, my stories are all over the board, but I had those 3 or 4 opportunities in the last 12 or 15 months. And again, it might not have that short-term payoff. I'm connected with hundreds and hundreds of people, but it might be that somebody, again, has that job for you tomorrow. It might be someday you have a job and you are already connected with your perfect candidate tomorrow, or a year from now, or 5 years from now. But the longer you've been connected, LinkedIn, you can share job change stories and seeing what people are sharing, and I think it feels very alive in that sense. I cannot encourage enough to get on there and get active and just spend 10 or 15 minutes a day scrolling through, seeing what people are doing, be in the loop on what's happening. And again, I think it's part of the whole resume experience, right? Like you need your work experience and volunteer work, and your degree is a key component, but those references are awfully tricky. And if you can build those up, so it's not just like, yeah, it's a family friend who can vouch for me. It's like, again, I had that CFO who was like a level above the CFO I was interviewing with vouched for me. I mean, that networking component can be so awesomely helpful. And I'll say personally, being in both positions, a hiring manager of accountants and myself looking for jobs, getting hired as an accountant, I would 100% put a UIU alumni or an IMA member, I would talk to them first because we've got something in common. We've got that sort of shared experience, right? Even if I haven't met them before, we kind of have a sort of network already. I know what they're about a little bit. I know what they've gotten to experience a little bit. We've got a good launching point. So even if you haven't met those people directly, still think of it as networking. Think of it as a way to connect with people and make sure to be proud of the things you've done, degree-wise, of places you're involved with. Don't be shy to put those front and center because those are things that people say, oh, you're involved with that? Yeah, I was that some time ago. Even something similar, like my new treasurer position at this charter school. The treasurer / now principal was a member of the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and was a chapter leader. And so when he heard me talk about my chapter leadership experience, different organization, but still from a networking perspective, we could connect on that and share sort of the experience of, yeah, we've both been volunteer leaders and we can kind of commiserate over the bad things. We can cheer about the good things, those sorts of things that connect people. But definitely connecting with people helps your personality shine. That's another piece that, not to make accounting sound like it's super easy, but I feel like generally I could train somebody to do accounting with enough time and effort and somebody who wants to learn, somebody who's got the aptitude for it. But I don't think if you gave me 20 years with a jerk that I could make them have a better attitude, right? I think that's a harder thing to fix. And so when you're networking with people, I think it gives you a chance to show, hopefully you're nice and you're empathetic and you listen well. And if not, practice those things. I do. Certainly, again, as an introvert, I'm not the best communicator. It's an active practice, every day. But if you are somebody who people find easy to work with, I think people will be more willing to take a chance on you or give you an opportunity because they know you have aptitude or they know you're pleasant to work with or they've had that experience or that interaction with you because you've built your network and you've gotten to show that to them. If you're like me and you hide and you play music or games or whatever and you never get to show your personality or never get to the opportunity to show people that they want to work with you in some capacity, right? Then you're just kind of a name on a piece of paper when your resume floats by. So I would say that tremendously important. It's been valuable for me. And again, I would say start on LinkedIn. It's like the easiest thing you can do. You can do it today. You can hop on and just send a little note. Hey, I see you're at this place, or we're part of the shared organization for fellow UIU students or alumni. I mean, it's so easy to just start building those connections.
I think it's great that you mentioned the UIU connection, that, you would make that connection with those individuals or, your IMA individuals over others because you have that connection and you can kind of get that conversation started. So that's great. That's something we try to utilize in our office as advice to our students and alums as well, as to make those upper Iowa connections. Career readiness is something that's an important topic in higher education and in career development in general. We belong to a national association and they have developed 8 core competencies for career readiness. What competencies do you feel, and I've shared them with you, what competencies do you feel are most important in helping one excel their career growth and become career ready?
Sure. No, I think that's a very good question. Certainly, I looked over the list, and they're all great. I'd love to talk about all 8, but I tried to narrow it down. They're all important, and they're all things that I continue to work at every day. I mean, I don't think any of us ever really make it in a career, right? Like we're always kind of trying to better ourselves. It's a lifelong learning sort of thing. But I would say of those, I tried to narrow it down to 3. And certainly leadership, I think, is the biggest one that stands out to me, maybe because it's one of the most difficult to build on. Again, I use the accounting example of you can kind of learn those skills, right? You can be taught how to do debits and credits and understand how to build a set of financial statements and all the fun stuff accountants do. But how do you develop that aptitude and that passion and that drive and the ability to try and get people to want to follow along with your ideas? And you might have the best ideas in the world, but if you're if you're not seen as somebody, again, if you don't have a good reputation or you don't present yourself well, and again, I'm not saying that to imply I do. It's something, again, I have to work at actively and always building on. But you need to have that ability to connect with people and be seen as somebody that can lead people, can lead a team, or can lead an idea or lead a project. I think that's critically important, because it doesn't matter how good you are at Excel, at accounting, no matter what technical knowledge you have. I think being seen as a leader is how you get to the next level. Otherwise, you'll kind of top out at like being a senior accountant. There's nothing wrong with it, but if you want to go further, I think technical skills only get you so far, and that interpersonal, that sense of leadership is critically important. And I guess in tandem with that, and the other two that struck me were oral and written communication and teamwork and collaboration. To me, those are somewhat very connected to leadership. Not to say all 8 are not connected, but again, you can be an awesome accountant, you can be, whip up reports in a snap, but if you can't communicate that effectively, again, if you're not pleasant to work with, somebody thinks you're a jerk, they don't care about your report because they don't want to have to work with you, that's a problem, right? So it's being able to communicate effectively, politely, cordially, respectfully, and in a way that people understand too. I mean, accountants have a tendency, a stereotype for good reason, that we just give so much data and it's so in-depth and we just overwhelm people because, well, we know it, so why doesn't everybody else know all this fancy accounting knowledge? Well, realize who you're working with. Like, read the room, read your audience. Who are you communicating to? Are you communicating to a sales manager, an operations person, a production person, a CEO, a banker? I think that ability to sort of be a chameleon of sorts and read the room and communicate effectively to a wide variety of people is something that elevates people from being just really good accountants or really good anything to awesome at what they do, because not only are they great at the technical side, but they communicate well. Everybody wants to work with that person. They like being on projects with that person because they are clear about expectations. They communicate results effectively. I think that's critically important and ties right into the teamwork collaboration piece. I mean, it's leadership is one thing, right? Like, we'd all love to be a president and be the top person and make a ton of money. Like, that's great. But realistically, all the top people are also part of a team, right? Like, nobody really, unless you're an Elon Musk or something where you truly can go it alone and be a billionaire on your very own merits. To me, the majority of people, it's a team, it's a group effort. It's whether it's you and somebody above you or below you on your same level, doesn't matter. It's the ability to collaborate with all of them and, again, be able to read working with people well and be seen as somebody that they want to work with. And so they will give you promotion opportunities more than somebody who is a stick in the mud that they don't want to collaborate with and don't see you as part of the team. You're not passionate, you're not friendly, and whatever it may be. Those things I think are really, all 3 of those strike me as how to really step up from just not being, a bachelor's holder with a ton of knowledge, but being like a bachelor's holder with a ton of knowledge that everybody wants to work with and wants to help you build your career, give you development opportunities. So those are the 3 I went with and why. I think those are critically important.
You kind of talked a little bit about them in kind of your explanation of the 3 things, but are there other ways that you would encourage students or other alums to improve those skills? You kind of talked about some of the things that they could get involved with, but are there any lasting things that you would want them to know on ways that they can improve those competencies?
Sure. It's always a tricky question, right? How do you become a better communicator? And I think for me, again, volunteerism helps because it puts you maybe in uncomfortable positions that maybe force you to work in teams more often than you would, or work on projects that are outside of your comfort zone that maybe you need to ask for help and practice asking for help and practice getting responses or give responses to other people who need help about it. For us as accountants, setting up events doesn't come naturally necessarily to many of us. So it can be a very collaborative piece that helps you hone that skill that you may not otherwise be getting the opportunity to do. And it doesn't even have to be career related, right? So if you have hobbies that you're involved in that might have like a local association or something. I was in bowling leagues when I was younger. I don't know that bowling is necessarily that popular, but you could always think about being a coach or getting involved somehow that, again, kind of gives you practice to talk in front of people, to work with other people, to see how people respond to you, and try and build relationships, and learn what's working and what's not working. If and of course, in addition to getting work experience and doing those things during the day, but accountants in particular are prone to just getting stuck in a spreadsheet for 4 hours out of the day. So getting those interpersonal communication skills developed, I think volunteer and extracurricular type activities. I mean, again, do something fun that you care about. Like, don't just do it because I want to develop my resume. Like, do it because you care. And I think the other parts will come naturally. And certainly the other thing I'd say is if you haven't, do seek a mentor. I'm still kind of looking for the right person for me. It can be somebody who comes and goes. It can be a lifelong thing, but try and look for that person who might be sort of the who can tell it to you straight about what you need to work on and improve on, because it can be hard to see it in ourselves, and we can be really self-critical, but not always in the right ways either. So that'd be my words of advice.
Thank you. On that note, are there any final pieces of advice that you would give tonight to Upper Iowa students and alums and others in the UIU community that might be watching before we wrap things up this evening?
Sure. I don't think anything else that I haven't covered other than, get involved with something you care about. Get involved with UIU. There's definitely ways to get involved like this, which I'm very grateful for the opportunity to take part in. Just look for those opportunities to connect with other people, practice skills you can't, and whatever it may be, if you look for it, if you put in the work, if I can do it, you can do it too. You can find the right place to grow those skills.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Royce. You had some wonderful leadership and volunteerism and networking opportunities that you could share with the Upper Iowa community, so we really appreciate that. And thank you for those that are watching the live feed, and it will also be posted on our Alumni Speaker Series page once we get the recording ready. So those of you interested in hearing more about Royce's information that he has for us tonight, you can check that out on the Alumni Speaker Series page a little bit later. Encourage you all to join us next month when we have our Alumni Speaker Series again. We keep continuing this on a monthly basis, and feel free to connect with Royce on LinkedIn if you're interested in connecting with him, learning more about his experiences, using that mentor, kind of connecting with somebody like that. Those are all good things that Royce can help you with. So encourage you all to continue to reach out to our Upper Iowa community, and have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.